Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. My name is Tunde Agboke. I am a member of HP's Government Affairs and Public Policy team. Really excited to have you all here to join us for the second HP Mentor Teacher Panel Advisor session. So without further ado, because I know we have a very limited time, without further ado, I'm going to have all the panel advisors introduce themselves. So we're going to start out with Betty Garcia-Hill.
Hello, everyone. My name is Betty Garcia-Hill. I come to you from the Worldwide Education team. I am HP's Global Education Technologist. But prior to that, I worked 18 years in the 7th largest school district in the United States. I was a teacher. I was a master technology teacher. I was an assistant principal, and then I led digital transformation from the student assessment department. I started 2 teams, one of them which I was the manager for 30 All-Stars. And so have tons of experience with leadership, and I hope that I can add on to the conversation today.
Thank you, Betty. Farida?
Okay, I'm Farida Khan. I come from South Africa. I'm the education lead for HP South Africa. I hope to share with you lots of my mentorship and leadership skills, and I look forward to being with you. That's it.
Thank you, Farida. And Dr. Phillips.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lanre Phillips. I'm responsible for education in Central Africa with HP. Prior to that, I have some background in telecommunications and banking. And I'm delighted to be here. I also act as coach to several small businesses back home in Nigeria. And I'm delighted to share my 2 kobo on the subject of leadership.
Perfect. Thank you all for the introduction, and thanks for that segue, Lanre. I think so everybody's on the same page, today's conversation is going to center around leadership, more specifically trust and emotional intelligence. So throughout the entire conversation, please, mentors, please feel free, hop into the chat, ask questions, and I'll make sure I grab them out of the chat and pose them to the panel. As we kind of get started, I guess I'm going to throw out a first question. And the first question is going to be, how do each of you define leadership? And I guess we can start with you, Betty. How do you just define leadership?
Yeah, Tunde, 2 words come to mind, inspiring and uniting, right? You know, to be able to lead, people have to follow. And so I always look to be inspiring and to be that unifying force, really helping those that I mentor and support to reach their maximum potential, leveraging on their strengths, supporting and expanding those weaknesses and giving them coaching opportunities. But really, it's about bringing people together for a collective goal and really allowing them to shine and to grow.
Love that. Thank you. Farida?
For me, leadership is about, I'd like to lead in a democratic type of leadership. So I believe in lots of collaboration to see what type of leadership skills will work best. So once you get the team's input to see how they work, what works best for the team. So I like lots of collaboration. So it's not more like a dictatorship, like do as I say. It's more like, let's work on it together. I'm very hands-on, you know, to see what works best. That's the type of leadership I would want to follow and be in.
Completely makes sense, being more collaborative. I love that approach. And Lanre, how about yourself?
Yeah, so for me, I believe leadership is not about the leader, it's about the followers. I mean, leadership is about how best do you bring people together, harmonize their talents and skills to ensure that they start to do extraordinary things. So for me also, one part of leadership that I found very important that a lot of people don't consider is the fact that leadership is not static. So leadership is a continuum, and because it's a continuum, For instance, in this part of the world, I've seen very, very great leaders, and as soon as their tenures are over, everything just goes southwards, so it's important for me to point out that leadership is also about continuity. I can use examples of football clubs, for instance, who had wonderful coaches and then they left and then the entire team just went down. So it's nice to emphasize also that leadership has to do with continuity.
Completely agree with that point. And I'm going to kind of pivot off that. So what you all covered in terms of your approach to leadership, and kind of last month in our panel discussion, there was a question related to how do you deal with having a bad day as a leader or as a mentor, but then still having to kind of serve in that capacity to whomever you're mentoring or whoever's kind of following your lead. So that got me thinking about our next question, right? So as a leader, how much do you believe empathy and vulnerability contribute to your ability to lead? And since Lanre, you answered last time, I'm going to go with you first this time.
Okay. So for me, empathy is about just putting people in your shoes. Or rather putting yourself in the shoes of others. So it's about you putting yourself in the shoes of your mentees or your subordinates or your team members, and looking at things from their perspective. The first thing we need to realize about leadership is that the leader is human. Okay, so the leader is not somebody entirely separate from the followers, so to speak. So leaders need to understand that one, they have to be vulnerable. People want to speak to human beings. People don't want to speak to robots or people that cannot understand the language or the thought process behind the discussion. So for me, vulnerability means being human. It means sharing concerns. It means looking at things from the point of view of others as well. I think that if you're open to members of your team, they would speak to you more. I've seen leaders that see vulnerability as a weakness. I don't think it's a weakness. I think rather it fosters trust, it fosters growth, and it makes people just open up to you.
Love that. Farida, you want to jump in?
Okay. For me, let me tell you, a live example. If I'm upset, so I get into my car, we got a big space, right? A car park at work. So I would go in, close my windows, and I just scream loud. So I'd get my anger out first. It works, right? It works. Because now I have to go back and act normal, like nothing, if I'm having like a real bad day. Honestly, I promise you it works, because you need to pep talk yourself. You need to psych yourself up that, you know what, you need to separate, because now you're dealing with different people in the office, right? And it could be something that frustrated you at home, or the traffic, or you just had a bad meeting or whatever. And, as a leader, you also, as much as you want to be empathetic, sympathetic, and whatever to your people, but you also can't get too involved with it, right? You need to draw, there is a fine line from being empathetic and getting too involved with them. So you also need to know where to stop. You can be empathetic and sympathetic, but to a certain extent. Don't get too involved and don't get drawn into the negativity. Rather, you let the people see the positive side of it. Life, nothing lasts forever, right? Everything has to come to an end. So your bad days are going to come to an end, and take every moment, every opportunity, and change it, right? So, nothing can be so bad. Nothing, I suppose nothing can get worse, because at that moment you think that, your world is coming to an end, but it's just the sun rises again. So I pep talk myself, and I'm very calm, I think. But you learn that patience and how to divert your anger or your frustration, and how to be calm over the years with experience. But as Lanre said, we all are human, right? And but as I say, you can also, being a leader, you can't get too emotionally involved with anybody, and get drawn into that. So you need to separate work from home, and take your negativity out and change it to positivity. So it works, but the screaming does work. I promise you, try it, guys. Don't scream in front of people, but when you're on your own, just go find a place or scream into a pillow or something, and just pep talk yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right about having that kind of release. I think it definitely works. Betty, any thoughts on vulnerability and empathy as a leader?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll split them up into two because I think those are two amazing characteristics. You know, the first one, empathy, that you mentioned. And I'm just going to start out. You guys, the majority of people around this table are educators and teachers. And so as a teacher, what do? We care about, we call the whole child, right? You're empathetic. If they haven't eaten, they can't learn. If they just had a fight with the parents and they're coming in angry, you've got to de-escalate so that they can focus on the learning. And so we come from that background, and that it doesn't change with leadership. When you have a team, they come with issues at home. They come with limitations. They come with imposter syndrome. They come with all of these needs. And as leaders, empathy allows us to listen. It allows us to care. It allows us to lean in and find out the why, right? So for me as a leader, it was really important to ask questions, not make assumptions, but find out a little bit more about the why. If it's something that wasn't quite right or bothered me, or, you know, that I felt like they were demonstrating a characteristic that, you know, that I wanted to understand better, I needed to have the empathy to ask the questions and to find out, was something going on at home? Did they have medical issues? And not necessarily getting into their personal space, but just demonstrating that they mattered as a human being, as a person first. And I found today that when I did that and I really cared, they were loyal. And that was the thing, that it's like, when it's not about a title, right? It's about gaining the loyalty and trust of the people that you lead, and that we're there together and we're there shoulder to shoulder. And you know what? When I had bad days and I wasn't feeling well, they were there for me and say, hey, Betty, are you okay? Do you need me? And we all compensated. Like, today might be a bad day, but you're going to take over. Okay, today might be a good day for you. So it's like we all believed in each other, trusted each other, but all that came from a deep, profound empathy to understand that we come to the table with all sorts of things happening, and that empathy allowed us to have that trust. But it started with communication, good communication, asking the right questions, and really digging deep to be able to get to the root cause of things, right? So that's the first one, empathy. And then the second one, which is being vulnerable. Many people might see it. I saw in the chat that vulnerability is a strength. Absolutely. I'm going to echo that. And I'm going to say this. I read a book, Dare to Lead. I actually have it right here because I wanted to make sure that it's very inspirational book for leadership, but it talked about vulnerability. You can't be courageous if you're not afraid. You can't be courageous and afraid if you're not vulnerable, right? So it's like, if we want to be courageous leaders and innovate, you got to make mistakes. You got to be vulnerable. You got to put yourself out there and understand that you might, right, make mistakes, and that's okay. But we're trying new things. We fail quickly, right? And so I'm going to encourage you to see vulnerability not as a weakness, but see vulnerability as an opportunity to really take risks, to really innovate, right? And to try new things and kind of push that status quo.
Love that. Thanks for that feedback, Betty. One question we have in the chat, I'm going to direct this at you, Lanre. One question we have in the chat is, are there any techniques or metrics or tools that you use to kind of measure the progress you're having with your mentees or with your employees, right? Like anybody who you feel that you're kind of in a mentor-mentee relationship with, is there any tools you use to measure progress?
Yeah, several tools, so very many tools. But basically what you're trying to achieve with the tools is that you're trying to set key performance indicators, or simply put, set agreements between the two of you. And if you're using any of these tools, the most important thing is that there should be milestones. So for every season, and by season I could mean a week, fortnightly, maybe monthly, you should be able to reach out to one another or to each other and check whether the agreed achievements that you thought would have been achieved at that milestone has been achieved. And if it hasn't, you have the discussion around it, letting the person know that this hasn't been achieved, and then you're moving on to the next milestone. I think communication plays a huge role. It's not just the tool alone, but to understand what you want to achieve with the tool. There are several tools. There's the balance scorecard, several tools that you could use in monitoring and evaluation as regards leadership. And as a matter of fact, as regards
you just went on mute. Lanre, you just went on mute.
Oh, sorry, I apologize. So what is important for me is knowing what the two of you want, okay, and being able to map out the milestones along the journey.
Love that. Appreciate that. Anything you want to add to that, or Farida?
No, I don't have an assessment tool, but I mean, the KPI is a great way to, to see, but I think you guys need to see what the goal is and where you want to go and put a timeline to everything, and then you can assess by that and the progress made to see what's happening there. But I don't really have an assessment tool, no.
Betty, was there anything you wanted to add on, or you feel like it was covered there?
Yeah, well, basically, all of my assessment tools were corresponded to the professional development plan. We let our teachers, choose a path of the professional development, things that they were interested in. And, as we met about their specific goals and the things that they wanted to work on, I leveraged that opportunity to talk about, glows and grows, like what were things that were and I didn't like to say strengths and weaknesses. I always said glows and grows, the things that they were really highlights and things that we wanted to stretch potentially, paired that with professional development opportunities, and then gave ongoing cycles of feedback.
I love that. Glows and grows. I have never heard that before. I love that. Okay. All right. So then kind of piggybacking on what you all just said, in situations where you are having a bad day, you're having one of those days where Farida just mentioned you need to go into the car and scream and things are just not going well for you, but you have, and this is the question we had on the last call, so I just want to get you all's opinion, but you have a meeting scheduled with a mentee, right? Like it's about to happen, but you are having a horrendous day. Are you keeping that meeting and working through whatever emotional situation you've got going on and keeping that commitment to the mentee, or are you rescheduling, canceling, doing whatever it is you have to do to get yourself in the right space mentally? Betty?
Well, I think it's going to depend on if I lost a loved one, you need to take care of yourself, right? So know that there are certain situations where your mental health comes first. But if I'm having a bad day, like we all do, and in leadership you have many of those, right? Escalations, things. No, I keep the meeting, right? And and the reason is because I want to show them that they're important, and they matter. There's always going to be issues, but I try to really keep that opportunity to let them know that this is their time and that they can, again, count on me, whether it's a good day or a bad day. What do I do? Parents always have these amazing ways to teach things. And my mom taught me to be a swan. And what that meant was, on the surface, I'm gliding through the lake, but underneath my little feet, underneath the water, my little feet are going like this, right? And it works for so many things, whether I'm nervous and I'm presenting, whether I'm having a bad day, and underneath the surface, there's a lot going on. And then professionally, you have that professional grit and composure. So glide like a swan on the surface. On the inside, we know the little feet, something else is going on, but it's important for me to be consistent, and to, again, part of vulnerability. It's okay to have a bad day. We're together. We're going to navigate through it together, and really, again, have that consistency.
I appreciate that. I love that. I'm used to it, talking to you with all your little teacher nuggets. I mean, it's always, but I mean, it's so interesting the way you're able to always have a kind of a teacher anecdote that you can refer to help deliver a point. I think that's a very useful skill to have. That's probably something I need to have you teach me how to do that. But well, Lanre, do you have any thoughts about when you're having a bad day and how you kind of handle that when you have commitments?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's about transparency. And I made a statement earlier. Human beings love to deal with human beings. So if you position yourself with your team members as a human being, they would trust you better. They would understand you better. So it's okay to actually tell your team, you guys, I'm having a bad day. I really am having a bad day. I might not contribute as much as I usually would. As a matter of fact, I might just keep quiet through the meeting, but I'm having a bad day, and we all have bad days anyway. So I think for me, the transparency and the realness, the openness, to be able to tell your team members that you're human as well. And I've seen this happen a lot of times. I had an encounter sometime last week, where you had to just show that you were human. And like I said, human beings love to talk to human beings.
Thank you for that. And Farida, beyond the screaming in the car, is there
Yeah.
how do you handle the situation with a commitment?
So I think with my meeting, I'd still have it. I would take myself out of my miserable thing, my moods or whatever you want to call it, and I would still have the meeting. Because sometimes, your problem is not bad. It's you get someone else that's worse off, right? You know the story with the man with no shoes, without no legs, right? You know that story. Where someone was
Mhm.
complaining that he had no shoes, and then he looks at the man next to him, and the man has got no legs. So I'm saying, you know what? And sometimes when you listen to other people's issues, yours seems nothing, and it takes you out of your issues, and then you see your anger dissipates. You're going to be like in a better state. And sometimes, I mean, you will tell your mentee, you know what? I had a bad day, and but I mean, everyone's priorities are different, and you know what? You can work, as say, you can work through it, navigate through it, and you know what? You would see. I mean, it's not so bad. So I think you are human, but you have to be professional, as one of you guys said so, and you have to still go on. Life goes on, right? And you have to deal with it. And I think being a great leader is what makes you. I mean, you have to change situations. You cannot be stuck in that, that negativity and in that bad mood. But I mean, you have to do something. So I think, I mean, there's always, and you change business ideas, you talk about the other person's problem, then you forget about your own. So yeah, that's it.
And I think all three of your answers is probably going to be in some way tied to this next question that I'm going to ask. It's from the chat, because I think you all kind of covered this partly. But going to you first, Farida, since we've got you, considering how short the HP MAP program is, right? Where we are working with all of these mentors to get them skilled enough so they can train other mentors, and then that cascades to other mentors, and then it continues to grow and grow, right? In the short time frame that the mentors have with their mentees, how are you able to kind of build trust with different individuals, team members, when you only have a limited time frame to build that trust?
So I think both sides, the mentor and the mentee, they need to trust each other, right? So the first lot of mentees that I had two of them. And I mean, up till this day, this was round one. They still contact me. We still, if they have an issue, I would still be there to advise them. We still chat, right? And I'm saying the trust is on both sides. You have to go with an open mind, whether you're a mentor or mentee. And I suppose being a mentor, you need to be around there for the mentee, because you don't know when they have a question, right? And I think just being available for the mentee is like trust enough. And I think that should be outlined right at the beginning. And since there is a short space of time, I mean, you can, you get the vibes. As soon as you speak to somebody, you get the vibe straight away. I don't know. Well, I'm sensitive like that, and I can. Well, I don't judge people, but I mean, when the problem, what the problem is, and it works both sides. And I mean, I learned a lot from my mentee, things that I took for granted, you know. And I mean, it was like learning on both sides. So I think the trust comes on both sides as well. And you form a relationship that lasts forever, you know. It doesn't have to terminate because you're not a mentor anymore. And
Completely agree.
and if you want that trust, then I mean, the mentee must be able to trust. And as I say, whatever we chat is just between us. And you have to be, I mean, that's a chance that everyone takes, right?
Definitely.
But life is short and there's no guarantees in life. So you need to be open to learn something.
Completely agree with that. I think all your points definitely resonate. Betty, I know you responded in the chat. Can you speak a little more to the authenticity you spoke about in the chat?
Yeah, absolutely. I think about myself when I meet somebody. Like, I think yesterday I met Wayente, which is my leader, my boss of my boss of my boss, right? And I felt, butterflies in my stomach, and I felt she asked us to be gentle, to ask questions, and we don't want to feel stupid. We don't want them to get the bad impression of us. So I again, talking about empathy, you want to put yourself in their shoes. You want to think about, they don't want to feel stupid. They want to give a good impression. So I have to make them feel comfortable. I have to make them feel that they matter. I have to show genuineness. I have to show, hey, I'm real, that they feel. Again, it's not how much you know, it's how you make them feel. Right. And so, Tunde, you know me, being real, being authentic, being genuine, being honest, that resonates with people, right? It's the way you make them feel. They're not going to remember all the things you taught them. They're going to remember how you make them feel. And once that effective barrier is, that shield is down, then they can be open, then they can learn. Again, we talk about kids. We are kids when it comes to fear. We're kids when it comes to the things that make us emotional. And so that would be my recommendation. Take advantage of building that relationship first, and then you can really coach and mentor.
Love that. Thank you, Betty. And Lanre, I want to give you the last word on this question.
Okay, so today I think trust is earned, and it doesn't come very easily. So one of the ways that I've learned to earn trust with people that I mentor is by sharing with them that I'm not the smartest person in the room. So there have been times where I have deliberately asked them for help, so that they also know that I'm authentic, like Betty said, that I'm real. So I don't want to be the smartest person. I don't want to look like the smartest person in the room as a leader. I want to look like a real human being who makes mistakes as well, who has needs as well, who probably even needs help from the mentees. So the way that I go about mentoring people is to ask everybody to throw in their ideas and let them understand that each and every of the ideas that they've thrown in has helped all of us as a group to be able to forge ahead better.
Love that. Thank you very much. Thank you all. I think we're over time, but I want to make sure that I give each of you an opportunity, if you have any kind of last words of advice or messages to the mentors as they kind of go through their journey of mentoring their fellow educators, because a lot of the mentors who are going through the program also currently aren't on the call, so they'll be watching the recording. So if there are any kind of last words you want to kind of share, would definitely appreciate that. Lanre, since you had the mic last, anything you want to share with the mentors as we close out?
Okay, just to add one tiny bit, at mentorship, one cap doesn't fit all, so it's not one size fits all. You're dealing with different people from different backgrounds, different thought processes, different idiosyncrasies. So you're going to have to do a lot more, to deal with people on an individual level. So one size doesn't fit all in leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Farida?
I think as mentors, you need to be very open with your mentees and be honest at all the time and be transparent. I mean, say what you feel and what you think. And sometimes as much as, I mean, just show your mentees how to be, show your mentors, your mentors. I mean, you guys need to show your mentees that, you know what, there is a human element to it. But I mean, transparency and is also very important, right? Transparency in what you think, because normally it's always your opinion and your thoughts, and they don't have to listen to everything that you say because it's your opinion at the end of the day, right? And the mentees have to decide whether what you're saying makes sense or not. And if they don't understand, you need to be very patient, because sometimes you'll need to explain the same things and what you mean. So I think when you talk, I mean, be specific, be clear in what you are saying, because sometimes, you know, when you say something, they won't understand. So I think patience is also a very important trait as being a mentor.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, completely agree. Patience is definitely a trait when you're doing mentorship. And last but not least, Betty, can you please close us out?
Yeah, you know, when I led my teams, I led them with 3 C's. I kept it simple: commitment, collaboration, celebration. What are we committed to? How are we going to collaborate to get there? And finally, how are we going to celebrate once we get there? I think the last one gets left out a lot. Celebrate each other, celebrate wins. Remember to motivate. You know, remember to find things to celebrate. Say, oh, I love how you did this. Oh, that was fire. It's amazing how long motivation goes. So I'm just going to encourage you, don't forget to celebrate your mentees. Don't forget to celebrate the accomplishments. Don't forget to continue to motivate them.
Thank you, Betty. And thank you, Lanre. Thank you, Farida. Thank you, mentors, for being on the call. Really appreciate everybody taking the time today. Really appreciate the insights you three have shared today. As I mentioned, everyone, we're gonna share the recording of the call so you'll be able to replay it back. But again, just want to thank everybody for joining the call today and engaging around our call about leadership on the second mentor advisory panel. So looking forward to having our discussion next month. But in the meantime, mentors, if you need anything, I know Hakeem, Rizma, and team are here to support. So please reach out if you need anything. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day and evening.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Bye, all. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.